Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Saints defense takes another big hit. David Onyemata, we learned today he will miss the first 6 games of the 2021 football season. He has violated the NFL's policy on performance-enhancing substances. Onyemata made the news known first earlier today with a post on Instagram, and subsequently the news broke that Onyemata would in fact miss 6 games. This is absolutely brutal. This is a doubled over at the waist from the severity of the swift kick to the nether regions. That's what this is today. For what it's worth, the 6 games, pretty standard. Last year, Patrick Peterson, same thing, 6 games. Will Fuller, same thing, 6 games. Bradley Roby, same thing, 6 games. It's pretty standard. So it's not like Goodell shoving the Saints' face in it like he tends to do when he has the opportunity. There are some sort of obvious... We'll talk about how the Saints address this for the first 6 games of the season in a second, but there's some obvious reasons why this is significant. You traded Malcolm Brown. You let Sheldon Rankins walk in free agency. And last year, you gave David Onyemata his big second contract. You gave him the 3-year, $27 million extension. This is a guy that on the interior has become a dominant interior player. Maybe he doesn't get as much respect across the league, but we all know how good of an interior player he is. He had a career-high 6.5 sacks last year. He is the guy that pushes the pocket from the middle for the Saints. Oh, by the way, the Saints set the NFL record for consecutive games without allowing a 100-yard rusher. A giant part of that has been their interior defensive line, led by David Onyemata. So, yes, this is a massive loss on top of knowing you're likely to be without Marshawn Lattimore, which already made cornerback uneasy because Janoris Jenkins walked in free agency, or you let him walk in free agency, and then the aforementioned Sheldon Rankins, Malcolm Brown situation. So you are paper thin now on the interior of your defensive line. You've got Shai Tuttle and Malcolm Roach. You got 2 guys that were undrafted free agents. In 2 seasons, Shai Tuttle has played in 29 games, and he has been, for an undrafted free agent, a guy that has certainly performed coming out of Tennessee. 29 games played. He's made just 46 tackles, 2 sacks, but you're going to ask him to do a lot more. As for Roach, played in 7 games a year ago, just 16 tackles, did not have a sack. But that's a Baton Rouge guy, of course, went to the University of Texas and made the team as an undrafted free agent, as we've seen many guys do with this Saints franchise on the defensive line over the years. Ryan Nielsen's got his work cut out for him because he is going to have to maximize the unit that he has as you start the season without David Onyemata for the first 6 games. Now, he'll be able to return week 8. Remember, the Saints have their bye week 6, and then week 7, they're at Seattle. So the games in the regular season that Onyemata is going to miss, he'll miss week 1, obviously, at home against Green Bay. He'll miss week 2 at Carolina, week 3 at New England, week 4 at home against the Giants, week 5 on the road against football team, in the bye in week 6, and then week 7 is the game in Seattle on Monday Night Football. And so then he'll return week 8 for the Halloween game against Tampa Bay in the Dome. So now, as much as we have talked about the need to add a veteran corner, which still exists. Now you have an urgent need to add a veteran defensive tackle because you cannot go into the season with just Shai Tuttle and Malcolm Roach. I mean, that's silly. It's obviously not realistic. So here's a couple of possibilities what's going to happen. First things first. This is a big time yo to the New Orleans Saints' 2 first-round picks at defensive end here in the last 5 years. Peyton Turner, who they just took in round 1, Peyton Turner's going to, versatile dude, guess what? You're not a defensive end anymore. You're a defensive tackle. We had Peyton Turner on this show right after the draft, and he talked about his versatility.
My versatility is definitely something that we talked about, just about me being able to rush on the inside as well, even especially on third down, and then, having outside flexibility and being able to rush on the edge, base downs or whatever.
So he's got the build of a defensive end, kind of like Davenport, but he's played inside out. Guess what, dude? You're a defensive tackle now. That's it. You're an interior player. You have to be. Which also means, hey, Marcus Davenport, time to keep your ass healthy and to have the best season of your career. Great timing for it as well as your rookie deal's about to expire. I know they picked up the 5th-year option, but this is your shot, man. If you want that deal before you play your 5th season, look at Ryan Ramczyk. Davenport, Carl Granderson is time. Those 2 guys have got to be studs opposite Cam Jordan to allow Peyton Turner the opportunity to play on the inside. That just has to happen. It has to happen. As for free agency, a lot of people are going to mention Geno Atkins, and justifiably so. Geno Atkins is probably the biggest name out there as far as free agent defensive tackles. Geno Atkins is 33 years old. He's played all 11 seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals. He's got more than 75 sacks to be exact, 75 and a half to be exact. Last season, though, played in just 8 games. Had a shoulder injury. Now, it's worth noting, before then, he had played in all 16 games every year of his career but 1. So he has been a durable player during his time in the NFL, but he's 33, and he missed half of last year with a shoulder injury. How healthy is he? Don't know. I'm going to give you 2 other names. And the reason I'm going to give you these 2 other names is because they've been productive players, but also because they played their career in the NFC South. And one thing we know about Sean Payton is that in free agency, he will look at guys that he is very familiar with that played in the NFC South. Need I mention the Saints, the guy who's going to be the Saints starting quarterback, Jameis Winston, came from the Bucs. We could look at a slew of guys from Curtis Lofton, who obviously came over from the Atlanta Falcons. This is what Sean Payton does. If he knows guys, if he's familiar with guys, Kurt Coleman, who was a safety who played for Carolina, and they signed him. Sean Payton likes to sign guys with whom he is familiar and guys he has seen. They have seen Gerald McCoy during his time in Tampa Bay. McCoy signed as a free agent last year in Dallas, but his season ended with injury in training camp before it ever started. So he did not play last season. How healthy is Gerald McCoy? Let's find out. But that's a guy who's been in the division. And I'll also mention another guy in Kawan Short. Kawan Short is a guy who has played his career with the Carolina Panthers. Another guy in his 30s. He's 32 years old. He's played his entire career with Carolina. But in the last 2 seasons, he's been injury plagued. He's only played in 5 games the last 2 years combined. But again, another guy that you could probably get on the cheap, with whom this staff is going to be very familiar. And certainly Short could play a zero technique, which is what Malcolm Brown kind of played last year. These are options. They're not great options. They're veterans who are near the end of their career, all of whom have had recent injury concerns. But if you can get them healthy to play, even if it's just to play the first 6 games, to give you a veteran presence as part of a rotation until Onyemata returns, it's worth it. And I'll give you one more sort of wild card. And I'm not sitting here trying to hype this guy and tell you that it's going to be something great or anything like that, but the Saints have had success in undrafted free agency. We mentioned Roach and Tuttle. One undrafted free agent defensive lineman that they signed this year is Lorenzo Neal, the son of former Saints fullback Lorenzo Neal. And right after the draft, I talked about Lorenzo Neal because if you don't remember his story, he was emerging at Purdue, got injured in the last game of 2018. He was a way too early mock draft, projected first-round pick. Tore up his knee in the last game of 2018. Complications cost him to miss the entire 2019 season. And then this past year, obviously with COVID, was a disjointed mess, especially in the Big Ten. Lorenzo Neal is a guy who Pro Football Focus 3 years ago rated as the second best player on Purdue's entire defense with a 74.0 overall grade. He had 15 pressures, 22 stops, had a run grade defense over 81. I'm not telling you Lorenzo Neal's the answer. I'm just saying if you're looking for a wild card, someone a little bit off the radar who could jump up and maybe earn some snaps and give you some depth that you're not talking about yet, Lorenzo Neal is one of those guys maybe worth keeping an eye on as the Saints get into training camp. There's no way around it, man. This is an absolutely brutal blow. A dominant player at a position where you are already thin, out for the first 6 games of the year, and we know the Saints' MO has been they struggle early in the season. That has been the Saints' MO when they've had those types of seasons. Slow start, dig themselves in a hole, too deep of a hole to dig out of throughout the rest of the way. They got to avoid that. Ryan Nielsen's going to have his work cut out for him, whoever they add to this roster. But with David Onyemata missing 6 weeks, they're going to add somebody to the interior of that roster if they didn't plan on doing it already. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.